On February 2014, an agitated woman placed a 911 call.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Minutes before that call, a loud gunshot had rang across into the nights of Dallas, Texas.
I need you to calm down. Which apartment?
Please.
Which apartment are you in?
It's 813. And he's shooting himself on the heart. And he's dying right now.
The gunshot had silenced the neighbors around, but minutes later, the sound of an approaching siren of the paramedics would break the silence. Upon their arrival at the apartment where they had been called to, they find Jonathan Cruz, a 27-year-old man. He lay on the bed, his body covered up to the waist. Upon checking for a pulse, Jonathan was pronounced dead at around 11:40 p.m. from a single gunshot wound to the left side of his chest. His newly met girlfriend is the one who had placed the 911 call. She was there along the paramedics, sobbing uncontrollably over Jonathan's situation. The case took several years to cover, with immense challenges when it came to piecing together the evidence to determine who had taken the shot, whether it was Jonathan or his girlfriend, Brenda. Jonathan was born in California but grew up in Texas. He and his brother made frequent visits to their grandfather at Montana. During those visits, they learned how to shoot pistols. He had two siblings, a brother by the name Christian and a baby sister by the name Danielle, who they simply called Danny. Their relationship was referred to be that of friends rather than that of siblings. Jonathan had graduated from Baylor University, where he studied history. But even in his early 20s, he lived with his family and was very open and close to his mother. In 2014, Jonathan had hit the 27th birthday. At this time, he had gotten a job as an operations director at an urgent care clinic. With his salary and financial independence, he decided to move out of his parents' home. He rented himself an apartment, and for the first time, he was independent. For roughly 3 months, Jonathan had started a new relationship with a woman called Brenda Lazaro. She was a friend of Danny. Jonathan had requested his sister Danny if it was okay if he asked Brenda out, a gesture that indicated that he was seeking Danny's approval for dating Brenda. His sister was okay with his advancements, and so he asked her out. Jonathan had first encountered Brenda at a couple Wee Shaolin martial school. Brenda worked there as an instructor for a guy named Henry Sue. Though they had not been together for long, Brenda had deeply fallen in love with him. For Jonathan, he was open looking for a woman to settle with as a wife. On the 22nd of February 2014, Brenda and Jonathan were together in his apartment. Jonathan had moved to his new place only weeks ago. At around 11:20 p.m., Brenda placed the 911 call. She claimed that Jonathan had a gunshot wound to the chest and that he had done it to himself.
I don't know what the name was. I don't know what the name. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
You're at Beltline and where, ma'am?
And MacArthur. MacArthur and Beltline.
You know the name of the apartment complex?
No, I don't know. But if you're going to the right, if you're coming north from MacArthur, the apartments are gonna be on the right.
Any mail or anything that you can give me the exact address?
No, there's nobody here. It's just me.
For almost a few minutes, Brenda had been struggling to give directions and location to the dispatcher. Almost 3 minutes in, as the dispatcher is still trying to figure out which complex she is in, Brenda started repeating Jonathan's name. The dispatcher asks if he shot himself on purpose. First, she shouts no, then corrects herself. She had been struggling with her English, and she did not even know the address to Jonathan's apartment.
You to calm down. Which apartment?
Please.
Which apartment?
It's 813. And he's shooting himself on the heart. And he's dying right now.
The dispatcher asked why he shot himself. She says she doesn't know. 4 minutes into the call, the dispatcher asked Brenda to go to a neighbor's apartment to verify the address, since it was difficult for her to identify.
I don't know what the name was. I don't know what the name. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
You're at Beltline and where, ma'am?
And MacArthur. MacArthur and Beltline.
You know the name of the apartment complex?
No, I don't know. But if you're going to the right, if you're coming north, from MacArthur, the apartments are gonna be on the right.
Any mail or anything that you can give me the exact address?
No, there's nobody here. It's just me.
In the 8th minute, she finds a neighbor who verifies the name of Jonathan's complex, the River Chase apartment. The dispatcher advises her to stay outside of the apartment, but rather she goes back inside again and declares him dead.
I need you to find some way to tell me what the address is.
Okay.
I need you to walk outside, go outside, and go to a neighbor.
Oh my god,
I need you to stop. I need you to help me.
The dispatcher had assumed that Brenda had not witnessed the gunshot, but rather had walked into the room only to find him wounded. He asked her what she had seen.
We were just having a discussion, and we were just talking, and then he just didn't believe me, and I didn't believe him, and he said he was gonna prove that he was.
Okay.
Upon the paramedics' arrival, they discover Jonathan in his bed, covered to his waist and with a bullet wound on his left side of the chest. He had been dead for at least 30 minutes before they arrived, so they determined. The shot was from his 9mm Sig Sauer gun. It sat to his left side of his body. His phone damaged between the mattress and the box spring of the bed. Upon examining the scene, police had a conclusion that there was a possibility for murder. They photographed the apartment. Ran gun residue test. Jonathan had residues on the top of his right hand fingers, none on his right palm. Funny enough, he was right-handed. His girlfriend had residue on her both hands as well as her sweatshirt. They found the magazine sitting in Jonathan's tie drawer. They did not get any fingerprints on the magazine, as well as no DNA evidence that could help establish who between the two was holding the gun. Brenda went through questioning at the scene as well as at the station. Her statement remained consistent but quite scary. She stated that they had been arguing all evening, and the greatest reason for their argument was Jonathan's friend by the name Emily. She felt uncomfortable with how Jonathan was close to Emily. Brenda had tried to make him end the relationship, but he had refused. They had also ordered a Chinese meal that same evening. Brenda said that Jonathan had brought back the topic about Emily, but she rather withdrew and went to the washroom. Moments later, she returned and sat at the foot of the bed, scrolling through her phone. Jonathan remained in bed as he said sweet and loving words to her, like he loved her so much and that she was his world. He had requested her to close their ears, and immediately after the sweet words she heard the gunshot. Brenda was Mexican by origin, but her family had moved to Texas. In her teenage years, her family moved back to the US. Her father worked as a solar panel technician. People who knew her said that she grew from a rough family and had a history of hostility. Brenda was mysterious in her own ways. She had confided with a friend that, while in Mexico, she had witnessed a murder. A friend who was quite close with Brenda revealed that she had been kidnapped with another young girl at the age of 12 years. Sadly, the girl did not survive, but she luckily did. The friend would also reveal that Brenda had opened up to her that she was once pregnant, but she never gave birth. Brenda had a Spanish degree from the University of Texas in Austin. She secured a job at the WUI school, specifically working as a substitute teacher in the evening. In these moments, that is when she met with Denny Cruz, Jonathan's younger sister, in the late 2013. Through Denny, Jonathan met Brenda and he developed some interest in her. He asked for permission from Denny if it was okay with her to ask Brenda out for a date. The sister consented. On one day, they were to go for a double date dinner. Emily was to bring along her boyfriend Jacob for the dinner, and obviously Jonathan was to take Brenda. The two, Emily and Jacob, were Jonathan's best friends. They went to a Chinese restaurant. However, during the meal, everyone had noted that Brenda was unusually quiet. Jacob and Emily had assumed that it was her nature being a quiet person. They had assumed that she was an introvert, but to their surprise, they came to learn that her distant and reserved behavior apparently was fury. She hated how Jonathan had hugged Emily when they met for the dinner. Such a hug was something common the two had shared for the longest time. The two, Emily and Jonathan, were purely friends and had never had a romantic relationship. It had never even crossed their thoughts. As police dug through into Brenda, they retrieved some Facebook messages she had sent over to Jonathan. She kept mentioning Emily and expressing how she never felt comfortable with how Jonathan related with her. She kept bringing up the issue. At some point when Jonathan had gone for a family trip to Europe, the only issue that Brenda kept bringing up was Emily. She could not get over the hug or even overcome her jealousy. Jonathan had tried to express his torment to his sister Denny, complaining on how the relationship had become difficult. On the 1st of February, a day before his death, he sent Denny a series of texts. He was stating that he only had 4 choices when it came to his relationship with Brenda. Number 1, fight it and try to make it better, which he doubted. And then number 2, choose Brenda. Number 3, refuse to give up either and see if Brenda ends it. Then number 4, end it with Brenda now. He made it clear, however, that choosing either of the first 3 options held a strong likelihood of bringing the relationship to an end. He added that ending it under his own terms would limit or contain the damage. Jonathan apologized to Denny, expressing his concern since he knew that ending the relationship with Brenda would also end Denny's relationship with Brenda as friends. After assessing his options, Jonathan made a final decision to end the relationship. On the morning of the day he died, Jacob and Emily had visited his apartment. He offered a tour to the couple, taking them around his new apartment, as well as showing them all of his guns. Jacob revealed that the gun that had been used to kill Jonathan was well placed in his dresser, and that Jonathan kept it with the magazine in and around well chambered. Surprisingly, after the law enforcement came to the apartment, they discovered the weapon's magazine all oily and sitting among Jonathan's neckties and was in a different drawer. Emily revealed that she was aware of the tension between Jonathan and Brenda because of the relationship she shared with Jonathan. Danny had told her she had offered to step out of the friendship, but Jonathan refused, stating that he was not ready to lose his close friends like Emily and Jacob. Jonathan had told Emily and Jacob that he was packing up Brenda's bags and wanted her out of his house. Surprisingly, late same evening, Emily received a text from Jonathan at around 10:52 p.m. saying, "I want to die." 40 minutes later after the text, Brenda called the 911 reporting that Jonathan was no more. Brenda was interrogated for hours and even days. During a search process into the apartment, some law authority officers reported that Jonathan's death was more of a homicide and the gun found at the scene as the murder weapon. Surprisingly, Brenda Lazaro got no charges. After an autopsy was conducted, it cast so much doubt across the investigation. The Dallas County Medical Examiner listed the manner of death as undetermined. There was an additional theory that the gunshot would have been self-inflicted, and Brenda, being the sole witness, insisted that Jonathan shot himself. Also, seemingly reasonable was the scenario in which the victim was shot as he slept, perhaps awaking in just enough time to reach the gun, a move that may explain how he ended up with the gun residue on his hand. More convincing, Jonathan's autopsy report indicated that he was not intoxicated by anything, meaning he was completely sober. This left the police with not enough evidence to prove or disapprove the homicide theory. They were left with nothing but lingering suspicions. The investigation came to a halt. Jonathan was well oriented with guns, and the circumstances to his death were more confusing. He was well aware of gun safety. The magazine located in his tie drawer may have been removed before or after the fatal bullet was fired. But given that the magazine was out of the gun, there was a possibility that whoever took the shot did not know that there was a round in the chamber. His family was convinced that Jonathan would have realized that the weapon he was holding was already loaded. He had familiarized with guns for almost his entire life. For Brenda, she remained in her belief that the weapon was not loaded. The Cruz family did not give up on the case, even after it was halted by the authorities. They hired a female private investigator by the name Sheila Wysocki. She is well established and had dealt with other big murder cases before Jonathan's case. The private investigator began by digging deeper into Jonathan's medical history. Her findings supported Jonathan's family claims that Jonathan never had a history of mental problems and had never been on any antidepressants his whole life, not even any medication that would affect his brain or reasoning abilities. He was not suicidal at all. She was convinced that Jonathan could not have pulled that trigger, at least not when aware. Sheila reviewed all police reports and findings, engaged new and old witnesses. She even went as an undercover agent at the Wuyi Mashi School. After a thorough and exclusive investigation, her conclusion was there was a great possibility that Jonathan did not pull the trigger. She also revealed that Jonathan had recently suffered a right shoulder injury, which was still active, and that he did not have the ability to stretch the right arm too far or have a firm grip of anything, leave alone a gun. Such a grip was going to exacerbate the strain. This made the angle of the presumed gunshot position difficult, almost impossible. It was a move so hard and painful to achieve. The neighbor who had helped Brenda identify the location told the police that it took roughly 20 minutes from the time she heard the gunshot and the time Brenda knocked on her door. This expressed quite a delay from the time Jonathan was shot and the time Brenda called 911, who arrived at the scene 45 minutes after the gunshot sound. Almost 2 years since Jonathan died, his parents, Pam and John Cruz, began talking of filing a civil suit against Brenda for wrongful death. They believed that the move would give them an opportunity for them to discover more evidence. All their lawyer was supposed to do was to show that a preponderance of the evidence indicated that Brenda was responsible. Juror went through a tremendous hard moment in determining whether there was a chance that Brenda killed Jonathan or not. Years went by, but gladly in 2022, 8 years since Jonathan's death, the team moved forward with a civil trial. Sheila had by then developed a theory which would be presented before the jury, with supporting evidence at the trial. They believed that Jonathan had broken the news to Brenda of wanting to end the relationship. A fight had erupted. Based on texts discovered in the investigation, the investigator knew that, based on Jonathan's words, that if he and Brenda were caught in a fight, Jonathan always acted by backing off and going to sleep. They argued that the same case happened that very night. Jonathan had gone to bed. Brenda texted Emily using Jonathan's phone. She then went for the gun, placed it on his left side of the chest, and pulled the trigger. Pearl Robertson, a retired Houston police detective, testified that Jonathan would have to contour his body to inflict the wound on his left side of the chest. Jonathan had seen a doctor only 2 days before his death concerning the shoulder pain. This took common sense, he added, that Jonathan would have pushed through the shoulder pain to put the barrel of the gun to where the bullet went through. He also pointed on the gun residue found on Brenda's palms, back of the hands, and the sweater shirt she wore. How come fewer gunshot residue was found on Jonathan? However, Brenda's defense team argued that the investigating team did not perform a thorough gun residue test on Jonathan. They only tested his arm. It is also known that gunshot residue tests can be misleading sometimes. Her attorney, Andrew G., further argued that Brenda ended up with more gun residue since she tried to cover Jonathan's wound with her palms to stop the bleeding. He further added that, according to the events, Jonathan did not have any plans of breaking up with her. He had even ordered them a Chinese meal. He also indicated that he still wanted to spend the night with her. She was still in his house past 11 p.m. This did not depict a picture of a couple who intended to break up. Brenda was finally given a chance to make a statement. For years, she had given different versions of the story to different people. How did Jonathan actually shoot himself? Was he standing or even seated? Cruz family attorney took 90 minutes questioning Brenda. She did not answer any of the questions. The jury deliberated for 2.5 hours before reaching to a fair verdict. In a civil case, only 5 votes are needed. Thomas Shaw, Jonathan's family lawyer, asked the jury to award the family with more than $129 million. The jury, however, decided on $206 million. Brenda, however, did not receive any criminal charges. The manner on how Jonathan died still remains as undetermined. Sheila Wysocki's team, as well as the Cruz family, turned up the evidence that was subsequently handed over to the Corpo Police Department. The case, however, remains as undetermined, and the family has not yet filed for the case reopening as at the year 2024. And that was the tragic case between Jonathan Cruz and Brenda Lazaro. And thank you so much for joining me. Please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.